Welcome to Defining Dad Bod, where my dad, Coach Alex Van Houten, posts his 14 years of experience to work for you. You should listen to him. Here's pretty beast mode. Who knows who we could be if we could become 1% better every single day.
What's up, guys? This is Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. I hope you're doing super well. You're listening to Season 3, Episode 7 of Defining Dad Bod, where we're talking about fish oil supplementation. Today's episode is going to be powerful as we go through the researched benefits of increasing the amount of omega-3 fatty acids from fish in your diet. And as I have done with each of our supplements in our supplement series, I have to make this medical disclaimer. I, Coach Alex Van Houten, am not a doctor, and the contents of this episode are not intended to diagnose or treat medical conditions. As always, if you have medical questions, I would recommend you talk to your doctor before supplementing with fish oil. And with that, here's your food for thought. More and more voices are chiming in around the individual responsibility each of us have in improving our immune systems to fight infection. We can all agree that the coronavirus that leads to the COVID-19 disease has captured the attention and imagination of our entire globe. But it's not the only thing that we need to bolster our immune system to fight off. Flu season's coming up, I'm sure the common cold will make an appearance, and who knows what else is headed our way. While both sides of the political aisle have used this as a giant weapon to blast blame on everybody and their opponents, I hope that our apolitical stance here, with an emphasis on you as an individual, has resonated with you. Nobody can exercise for you. Nobody can eat healthy foods for you. Nobody can get enough sleep for you. And whether or not people are wearing masks or getting vaccines, taking social distancing measures or washing their hands, your body is your responsibility. Now I know that we all have obstacles and challenges to overcome in the journey to manifest the best in ourselves. I hope you'll see how powerful of an impact your personal responsibility in health and fitness can be on you and your community. When you eat well, your kids eat better too. When you go for a run, your entire neighborhood sees what you're up to, and it plants a seed that maybe they should be doing that too. Start doing the things that you know you need to start doing to improve yourself, and stop doing the things that you know you need to stop doing that are making you weak. Outside of that, the world's going to do what it's going to do. But I hope for you and your house, you've done what you can to be ready. I hope that gives you something to chew on. And real quick, before we get to our episode, I do want to shout out to our listener, Coach Mary, who gave us a 5-star raving review and said, "Alex is great, knowledgeable, and fun to listen to, especially when Gabriel is on with him." Thanks, Coach Mary. You're not the only one who's asked for more Gabriel, and I'll see if he can fit us into his busy schedule sometime soon. I mean, he's 5. He's got a lot going on. And now, without further ado, let's get to the researched benefits around omega-3 fish oils. Fish oil supplements. Should you be taking one? What's it for? And how to know if it's working? All good questions. Let's dive in. First, to understand what fish oil can do for you and whether or not you should be taking it, we need to learn a little biochemistry. Don't worry, I won't be super complicated here. To dive into the full picture of how fats are used in your body, I've got a link in the show notes below to one of our past episodes where we dive really deep into that. But for our discussion today, to make it really simple, fish oil and other supplements like it on the market, like krill oil, work by increasing the intake of your omega-3 fatty acids. Now, there are several different omega-3 fatty acids that can be a part of your diet. In particular, what fish has a high concentration of, compared to other things, is 2 very special omega-3 fatty acids. That's eicosapentaenoic acid and docosahexaenoic acid, EPA and DHA. And these 2 omega-3 fatty acids are used by your body after digestion to be incorporated into your cell membranes and mitochondrial membranes. That is to say, that if you're eating a diet high in omega-3 fatty acids, then when your body creates new cells, those omega-3 fatty acids are incorporated into the cells themselves. And it turns out that having cells with lots of omega-3 fatty acids incorporated into the membranes actually change some of the ways that those cells interact with our body. We'll talk about those interactions in just a second, but I really want you to wrap your head around that. Our body builds itself out of the food that we eat. Or more specifically, with regard to this conversation, our body builds new cell membranes and new organelle membranes out of the fatty acids we eat. And the higher the intake of omega-3 fatty acids in our diet, the higher the amount of omega-3 fatty acids you'll find in different cell membranes in your body. And this fact is the simple reason that when fish oil is studied in the highest quality, peer-reviewed sense, there are some amazing benefits found in supplementing fish oil. We'll get to those researched effects in just a bit, but I want you to understand what omega-3 fish oil is not. And then I want to talk to you about the mechanism by which this change in your cell membranes might affect your body in a positive way. So first, what it's not. Notice when I say supplementing fish oil, I don't say supplementing omega-3s. The reason I make that distinction is because there are omega-3 supplements on the market that don't come from fish. This can be pretty confusing if you don't understand chemistry, and so I'm going to break it down here. Omega-3 supplements that are derived from plant sources, like flax and canola, are truly omega-3s. But the word omega-3 simply refers to the structure of a particular molecule, and there's an entire class of structures of molecules that are omega-3s. In particular, plant sources of omega-3s are a shorter chain omega-3 than fish sources of omega-3s. When I say omega-3 from flax or canola, that's in reference to an omega-3 fatty acid called A-linoleic acid. And A-linoleic acid only has 18 carbons in the molecule itself, whereas EPA and DHA, eicosapentaenoic acid, and docosahexaenoic acid, those have 20 and 22 carbons, respectively. Alright, Alex, why does it matter how many carbons an omega-3 has? Well, it turns out that our body uses those long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, the ones with 20 and 22 carbons, to actually build cell membranes out of. But the short-chain omega-3 fatty acids are simply used for energy. So if you're supplementing with omega-3 fatty acids from flax and canola, and you know that your body's only going to burn that for energy, with a very small amount of it being able to be used to create the EPA and DHA, then you'll understand why in the research, supplementing omega-3 fatty acids from plant sources does not find the same benefits as supplementing with omega-3 fatty acids from fish sources. Now, I keep saying fish sources, and it's important for you to understand that there are some species of fish that have much higher omega-3 fatty acid counts than others. The ones at the top of the list are tuna, trout, salmon, mackerel, sardines, and anchovies. And while there are other great fish in the world, like halibut, pollock, and mahi-mahi, these fish don't have nearly the omega-3 count as the fish I just listed off. And so when you look at an omega-3 fatty acid supplement, you'll see those aren't used as sources. More on that when we talk about eating fish in a bit. So just know that not all omega-3 supplements are created equal. The primary difference is a plant-based supplement is not going to give you the omega-3s that we're talking about here, that have researched and been associated with these positive outcomes that we'll talk about today. And that's because those plant-based omega-3s are only really used as fuel, at least 90% of the time, and very rarely are synthesized to be incorporated into cell membranes. And now to the mechanism. Now I've already told you that our body uses the fats that we eat in order to create new cell membranes and new organelle membranes. And I hope this isn't the first time you've heard me say this, since I've harped on it on the show over and over and over again, in my pursuit to help people understand what role energy balance plays in their long-term health and fitness goals. Don't worry, I won't get on my soapbox here. But now the question is, how does the incorporation of increased omega-3s in cell membranes change the way the cell functions, and perhaps change the way that you function? Now this is an intelligent question. It's a deep question, and it's one that we're just starting to find the answers to. You see, the research that I'm about to talk to you about, to tell you how omega-3s might benefit you, is part of the search to understand the mechanism for what these effects are. So I'll tell you what we know so far. Cells with elevated levels of omega-3s in their membranes create action potentials differently, are more resilient to those action potentials, and alter the signaling that leads to decreased inflammation. Now I know I have a tendency to get pretty nerdy on this show, and I'm going to warn you that the next 3 to 4 minutes might be about the nerdiest I've ever gotten. If you want to go ahead and skip that and get to the Cliff Notes version, I won't hold it against you. That's what my wife would do. But to understand how omega-3s are actually affecting us, you have to be able to picture a phospholipid bilayer, and you have to understand its function in cells, how it communicates to DNA, and how it communicates to other cells, in order to wrap your head around how big of a deal this whole omega-3 concentration thing is. One way omega-3s affect cells seems to be streamlining the electrical impulses that occur across cell membranes. One example we found in research is in those with arrhythmias, that is, an irregular heartbeat usually caused by rogue electric impulses that are proliferating across the membrane of cardiac tissue. When omega-3 fatty acids were incorporated into similar cardiac tissue, it was found that the electrical impulses quieted down a bit, and those additional electrical signals that were contributing to an irregular heartbeat were eliminated. Imagine that every single time your heart beats, a lightning bolt spreads across the cardiac tissue to tell it to contract. In some people, the lightning bolt doesn't have very many branches. Imagine one large strike and a few smaller strikes that go across the heart, and there's one strong contraction. Now imagine in other people that the lightning bolt itself spreads wide across the sky and flashes multiple times, branching off into a bunch of different lightning bolts. Well, that would result in a very strange and undulating contraction across the heart, and that's not very efficient for pumping blood. Now, when the omega-3 concentration in the membranes of the cardiac tissue is increased, what seems to happen is that very large, wavy, branched lightning bolt that goes across the heart gets consolidated into that much more clean strike that we see in a healthy heart. Now, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm not a doctor, and that might have been a terrible explanation of that whole process. But what I hope you take away is that just like in cardiac tissue, the incorporation of omega-3 fatty acids into cell membranes seems to clean up the electrical activity in cells. As you'll see when we talk about the researched effects, this has some interesting implications for neurons as well. That is, brain health and function. There's another ramification with regard to the action potentials across membranes, and that is the resilience of your mitochondria. You've heard me say before that mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. That's the place in which ATP is synthesized to be used as energy so that your cells can power the reactions of creating new cells, contracting muscles, and even creating those electric potentials I just talked about. It turns out that there seems to be a magic number of omega-3 fatty acid molecules that are best in the membranes of our mitochondria. And with the right amount of omega-3s, the membranes of our mitochondria are less likely to be damaged during the creation of ATP. If you have a bunch of powerhouses in your cell, wouldn't it stand to reason that it would be good if they didn't break down really fast? More research is needed to understand this particular mechanism. But if you don't take anything else away from this whole thing, I want you to hear that the concentration of omega-3 fatty acids in your cell membranes matters. And that since your body's always building new cells and always building new organelles, then whether or not you're eating these omega-3 fatty acids also matters. Not just now, but a week from now, and maybe even a year from now. Now, the last nerdy mechanism has to do with the word inflammation. And it turns out that fish oil has anti-inflammatory effects on the body. Now, please don't hear that fish oil is just like ibuprofen. It works in a different way. Remember I told you that the omega-3 fatty acids get incorporated into the membranes of the cell. Well, it turns out being incorporated into the membranes of the cell and changing the properties of the membrane are not the only important thing that omega-3 fatty acids do. It also seems to change the way each cell responds to signals that would lead to inflammation. Have you ever met a dog that was just way too over the top in their excitement and enthusiasm? It's almost like you're afraid to play with them or pay attention to them, because they get all riled up and start running on furniture and knocking down small children. Well, I have, and it's very frustrating. And that excitability is exactly the way somebody's body that's pro-inflammatory responds to inflammatory signals. That is to say, the tiniest little thing sets off their inflammatory markers. The joints get swollen, they enter an immune response, and their body's energy is diverted to dealing with the problem. If you meet a dog like that, you might be tempted to think that dog needs a chill pill. And in a way, an omega-3 fatty acid is kind of a chill pill to the inflammatory response. Now, it doesn't turn off inflammation in a similar way that an over-the-counter NSAID, like ibuprofen or naproxen would. Instead, incorporating more omega-3 fatty acids into the membranes of the cells seems to gently shift mediator production, cell signaling, and gene expression toward a phenotype of lessened reactivity against environmental stimuli. In layman's terms, fish oils are a chill pill to your cellular inflammatory response. And anecdotally, I've seen this to be true in clients who have a diet low in omega-3s, begin taking an omega-3 supplement, and lose 1 to 5 pounds of water weight in the next week, if their body's been operating in a pro-inflammatory manner, meaning that their immune system and their inflammation is constantly on high alert. And incorporating omega-3 fatty acids could be a powerful shift for them at the level of their cell membranes to reduce that inflammatory response. Alright, end nerdiness. If you've made it this far, I applaud you. I know science isn't everyone's favorite subject, but it's so important to me for you to understand the mechanism that a well-researched supplement might act on your body, so that if it does do good things for you, it's not a magic pill, it's science. And while there's definitely some magic that happens in an awesome health and fitness journey, I don't think it comes from our supplements. Now, we're going to talk about our researched effects, and I've put the link in the show notes below to our source material, just in case you want to do your own research. And then we'll talk about how I use fish oil in my personal practice and with my coaching clients. While there are several beneficial effects of fish oil that we're still currently studying to understand better, these are the 5 that we understand pretty well, and we can claim with a high level of assurance. First, fish oil supplementation significantly reduces blood triglycerides. If you finished a yearly checkup and your triglycerides are elevated, then in addition to a few dietary factors you might consider, you could also consider taking a fish oil. It'll drop that number. And this is one of the reasons that the American Heart Association has recommended daily fish oil supplementation if not contraindicated, because over time, elevated triglycerides has been linked to increased incidence of heart disease. And while fish oil has been related to things like HDL cholesterol elevation and slightly lower LDL cholesterol, it's unclear if fish oil all by itself can reduce one's risk of a cardiac episode. In fact, when statistically controlled for exercise or other nutrition and lifestyle factors, fish oil doesn't seem to have much of an effect on whether or not we have a heart attack. As the argument goes, those who are likely to take a fish oil supplement to help their heart are probably also doing other things, like cardiovascular exercise, and consciously limiting processed foods. So it's hard to say fish oil is all by itself a magic pill that'll keep you from cardiovascular disease, but better to say that the consumption of omega-3 fatty acids is a powerful and positive part of a lifestyle that would prevent heart disease. The second, third, and fourth research benefits with regard to fish oil have little to do with your heart and everything to do with your brain. Fish oil has been found to reduce depression symptoms in majorly depressed individuals. Similarly, fish oil has been shown to reduce anxiety symptoms in majorly anxious individuals. And there's even been a mild decrease in ADHD symptoms in children with fish oil supplementation. I find these effects particularly fascinating. First of all, because there are many side effects to taking anti-anxiety medications or antidepressants or commonly prescribed ADHD medications. Now, the research doesn't argue that people should replace their medications with fish oil and everything would be fine, but the research does seem to suggest that if you've been wrestling with depression and anxiety, or you have a child who's been wrestling with symptoms of inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity, that fish oil could be an important part of reducing those symptoms and boosting quality of life. And from what we know about how medications interact with the body versus what we know about how fish oil is interacting in the body, it's very possible that the relief from these symptoms and the improved quality of life could be a long-term thing, and I believe that's definitely worth exploring. There's a lot of speculation about why that might be the case, why supplementing with omega-3 fatty acids might have a significant effect on depression, anxiety, and ADHD, and until we know better, I won't go through all those speculations here. But I will say, given the relative cost and lack of side effects, it's worth a shot. Which brings me to the fifth positive and powerful studied effect of fish oil, and that is a reduction in the rate of cognitive decline in elderly individuals. In nursing homes, when they've separated groups of individuals and given one group fish oil supplements and kept the other group as a control, then over the following years, the group who supplemented daily with fish oil saw less of a reduction in memory, attention, learning capability, and markers for dementia and Alzheimer's disease. The thought there is that one of the omega-3 fatty acids, DHA specifically, is vital in the construction and maintenance of brain tissue. The same is seen in infants who experience this in reverse when their environment's deprived of DHA, like insufficient access to fortified formula or a breastfeeding mother, whose brains don't develop on schedule and result in many developmental issues. It may be the preservation and construction of new brain tissue, or maybe it has something to do with the action potentials we talked about earlier. But whatever the case is, supplementing with fish oil daily has been shown to reduce cognitive decline in elderly individuals. I do have a bonus effect that I want to discuss as well, and that is improvement in sleep. But this one's a little more nuanced. In individuals who report depression or anxiety symptoms, fish oil supplementation daily seemed to improve their sleep quality, both subjectively and when measured. But in a healthy population, who didn't report any depression or anxiety symptoms, fish oil did nothing to improve their sleep quality. And so, if it's not contraindicated for you, and you're listening to the sound of my voice, wrestling with both depression or anxiety and sleep issues, it's definitely worth trying some fish oil to see if it helps. Now, as I'm about to get to fish oil supplementation and how I use that in my personal coaching as well as in my personal life, I've mentioned a contraindication that I want to make sure that I clear up here. While fish oil has no known side effects, except for maybe fishy burps, which can be mitigated by an intelligent company who puts a drop of peppermint oil in their fish capsules, #true story, it will thin your blood a bit. Now, if you're an individual who's not currently taking a blood thinner, then this isn't a problem. But if you have a medical issue that's being treated with something like Coumadin or warfarin, then you need to be careful about supplementing with fish oil. And this contraindication plays directly into the recommendations that I'll make for you now. All right, Alex, you got me. Omega-3s are important. I want my membranes to be all incorporated and synthesized and stuff. I'd like to reduce my inflammation, keep my triglycerides nice and happy, and stave off things like depression, anxiety, cognitive decline, and ADHD. Fantastic. How do I get that done? Well, that's a good question. In fact, the U.S. National Institutes of Health had a powerful conference wherein they looked at the average consumption of high omega-3 fatty acid fish in the American diet. What they found is that Americans are only consuming, on average, 150 milligrams of omega-3s per week. That's equivalent to about one fish meal every 10 days. And while EPA and DHA don't currently have an RDA, say that 10 times fast. I'm going to rewind and say that just a little bit better for you. While omega-3 fatty acids don't currently have a recommended dietary allowance, that is, the minimum amount that you should get, that conference did recommend that if you're getting less than 500 milligrams per day of omega-3 fatty acids in your diet, then you will likely experience symptoms of, quote, deficiency. You might be asking, what's that translate to in actual meals per week? And I'm glad you asked. At a minimum, because of this information, I recommend that my clients get 3 to 4 servings of high omega-3 fatty acid fish in their diet every week. And this is in keeping with the recommendations from the American Heart Association for those who have gone through heart surgery. If you're listening to this show right now, and you've done nutrition coaching, then unless you're very new to it, I have outright said to you, I need you to eat more tuna, more trout, more salmon, more mackerel, more sardines, or more anchovies. I really don't care which one you pick, but I need that in your diet regularly. In which case you likely responded with, I don't know, I don't eat very much fish. And so I said, tough, let's get used to it and figure out a way you enjoy it. And that's really about the size of it with my clients. See, once upon a time, I recommended omega-3 fish oil supplementation regularly. And while the people that I worked with saw benefits, like reduced water retention, reduced symptoms of depression, and even improved energy throughout our workouts, it didn't really drive any changes in their day-to-day nutrition. Imagine if you're taking a fish oil supplement to increase the concentration of omega-3 fatty acids in your diet. So you consume 1,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA, but you're still eating the same amount of fat from other sources that you were before the fish oil. That means nothing's likely to change about your dietary intake, and you're just flooding yourself with a bunch more omega-3s. I guess that's better than nothing, but I've found better results with both myself and my clients when I can help them trade out some of the other fatty profiles in their day for some omega-3 fatty acid fish. Now, does that mean you're in trouble if you can't develop a taste for fish? No, not really. There are very high quality fish oil supplements that exist in the world. I'll put the link to the one that I recommend below. However, I'll reiterate that I've worked with many clients who are on blood thinners, and so eating fish, that is, getting your omega-3s from a source that will break down much more slowly and naturally in your digestive system, rather than flooding your bloodstream with a high concentration of omega-3s, would be the best way forward for you. But just know if you do take an omega-3 supplement, to help you get the amount of omega-3s that you need it's still going to be worth addressing your macronutrient profile in relationship to your fats and proteins. Now, personally, I keep omega-3 fatty acids in the house despite eating on average 6 to 8 fish meals in a week. And the reason I do that is 1, for travel, and 2, for holidays. Anytime there's going to be a significant disruption to the way that you normally eat, and if that disruption is going to stick around for a few days, then having an omega-3 supplement on hand can be really handy. Let's face it, most of the places I go don't have a stockpile of excellent grade sardines on hand. And in some social situations, I don't want the person across the table from me grossed out like my wife is when I open a can of mackerel. It turns out not a lot of people have developed a taste for fish and are kind of grossed out by the whole thing. Oh well, more for me, I guess. But for that reason, I do keep a fish oil supplement on hand, just to keep a steady stream of omega-3 fatty acids in my life if I'm unable to eat like I normally would. But if you, like me, are trying to increase the amount of omega-3s in your diet, and you're not really keen on the whole fish thing, here are some pro tips. 1. Seasonings are a thing. Don't discount them. My favorite way to eat sardines is to take 2 cans of sardines in water, put them on a plate, and sprinkle my favorite pork dry rub over top of them. Back before I knew I had ulcerative colitis, I loved them in Tabasco or Louisiana hot sauce. But cayenne doesn't make my large intestine very happy, so now I stick to the pork dry rub. Now the same thing goes for things like tuna, or canned salmon and canned mackerel. Find a seasoning or two you like, and throw it on there. Now I will warn you, if consumption of salmon, or sardines, or mackerel from a can is new to you, then don't be surprised by the crunch. These canned fishes are cooked at a very high temperature with their entire body in there, which means that the bones break down to be edible rather than getting lodged in your throat, and they come with a great crunch and a bunch of minerals jam-packed just for you, kind of like nature's multivitamin. But I have had a client or two take me to task on not warning them about the texture, so there you go. Your second pro tip when it comes to fish consumption, kind of already alluded to, and that is, you don't have to eat it fresh all the time. Thankfully, many high omega-3 fish are currently canned, which means you don't need a refrigerator, they're non-perishable, and with a fork and a can opener, that's about all the meal prep you need. Now I realize not everybody's okay with eating canned salmon out of the can with a fork. One of my clients says I'm a special cookie, and I don't think she means that flatteringly, but I am saying that in order to increase your omega-3 fatty acids, there is a more convenient way than filleting on the grill every day. That rhymed, and Dr. Seuss and I are best buddies. Open the can and give it a shot. Some crackers, a salad, or even all by itself. In my opinion, canned fish is a lifesaver for a busy dad. The last pro tip I'll give you is that lunchtime is probably the easiest time to ensure a regular consumption of fish. I don't know how your day looks, but lunchtime is the one meal of the day that I control 100%. I'm not sitting down with family, I'm usually kind of on the go, and the more constant it is, the easier things get for me. I like to eat about the same thing for lunch every single day. That way, while I'm going about things, I can just eat my stuff and move on. And for many of the guys that I work with, lunchtime is the time that they get their fish in a day. They're usually at the office or on the go as well, and so it's convenient to make fish a part of their lunch while not trying to have to get their entire family on board for dinner time. While I have gotten my wife and kiddos to come around on blackened salmon, that's about the only thing we see eye to eye on in the high omega-3 world, so I take mine at lunch. And so there you have it, the research and reason for omega-3 fatty acid supplementation. About 10 years ago, I would have said, take your fish oil, it's good for you, and it would have been a good move. But today, my recommendation for you is if you're looking to make some nutrition changes that are going to help you and give you the positive benefits of omega-3 fatty acids, then work to develop a taste for high omega-3 fish. If you can't do so, there really are supplements to help you in that direction, but whether it's through your food or through supplements, fish oil is a powerful and well-researched way to improve your quality and quantity of life. This has been Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. Until next time, guys, kick butt, take names.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The free, practical advice and conversations here remain unbought and unbiased thanks to the support of listeners just like you. If this episode's been helpful to you, please share it with somebody in your life who you know it will benefit. Then, subscribe to the podcast and leave us a raving review to tell others what value Defining Dad Bod has brought to your health and fitness journey. And finally, if you want more Defining Dad Bod, consider joining our online community. We send a lot of free perks and resources your way, and I, Coach Alex, go live every month to talk through our listeners' health and fitness questions to make the practical science of this show applicable to everyday life. Everyone's welcome, and we'd love to have you. For more information about joining the Inner Circle or becoming a supporter of the Defining Dad Bod podcast, go to definingdadbod.com/inner circle. That's definingdadbod.com/inner circle.